And
It's the button that says record.
yeah, that's the right one. Well, Pointer fans, we're here and back for another Wisdom Wednesday, our 6th edition. Thanks for coming back and joining us. You know, last week we got a chance to hear from Steve Foster, pitching coach, Colorado Rockies, former baseball coach for the Pointers. And we've heard from some of our legends and some great wisdom. And man, are we lucky to be joined for week 6 with one of my good friends since I've come to Point, and one of our people who have had such a successful career beyond their playing seasons. You know, Dan Hauser's with us, a 77 grad. And back when he was at Stevens Point, he majored in business education. And he was a 2-sport student athlete right here at Point, played football and baseball for us. Went on to get a master's degree from Ohio University and spent basically his entire career. He was what every graduate wants to be, right? I have an undergrad degree in something and then realized I don't want to do that. And then switched careers completely and got an internship with the Detroit Pistons and the Palace Sports Entertainment and worked his way. You know, this is every young man's dream, right? I'm going to work from intern to executive VP. Unbelievable time there, won 6 championships, 3 with the Detroit Pistons and a couple with the Detroit Shock. And then that entertainment group actually owned the Tampa Bay Lightning. So 6 championships there, I believe, or maybe 7, 6 or 7. I'll let Dan 7, I think, right? Dan? 7. Finished his career with the 76ers as the senior VP of corporate partnerships. Was a graduation speaker for us, has been honored, was the UW Stevens Point Distinguished Alum. Dan, we are so lucky to have you back with us and chatting with us this morning. How are you doing out in Philadelphia?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here today. I'm living in one of the hotbeds of our country, so we got to be careful, but it's no different than anywhere else. You just have to handle it the right way, and, you know, hopefully everything's okay. We need to get things straightened out and kind of it's in our control and out of our control. So we just have to do our best and play our role. It's kind of like a sports. Whatever your role is, you got to play it.
You picked a good time to retire. You know, you don't have to figure out from the NBA standpoint how you're going to massage this schedule to get back to normalcy. We've got a long list of questions for you, but before we get into them, you know, just as somebody who, you know, if you dig into your career, you were pretty integral in terms of the analytics of scheduling and preseason scheduling, and, you know, working with your partners and the Palace and all the other things. How do you what do you even think they're doing in the NBA right now to think about scheduling and everything else that could come on with this?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a great question. Adam Silver, I have tremendous respect for. And if there's one person that's going to figure it out, it's him. I mean, he has really good people. In the scheduling, I did scheduling for about 25 years with the Pistons and then also the Sixers. So what they're going through right now, it's an amazing process, but also, I mean, the most difficult thing is you don't know when you're starting. You don't know when you're going to end and what's going to happen in the middle. I mean, only the good Lord knows. And so they have an impossible job in all sports, not just them. And I don't want to make it belittling because, you know, people in their lives, and that's still the most important thing, not the schedule, and people losing lives and being affected by this. So, but the scheduling process that they go through, you know, they constantly are calling teams for, and rightfully so, for, you know, new set of dates that they can play. You know, the what if we did this, how would we do this? I mean, it's an impossible job to do right now, but they'll pull it out, and it all starts with, you know, what are we going to do? Are we going to play without fans? Which certainly sounds like that's probably what's happening. It's going to have to happen. And then, you know, where are they playing at, which is a lot of different rumors on that. I find the scheduling part to be incredible because, you know, we used to do it based on with the analytics. We would figure out like what are the most advantageous dates to play a home game. And so, by the time I got done with analytics with the guys that helped me, I could tell you on a specific day in a specific month, whether it's a Tuesday or a Friday, what the difference in the revenue would be, which of those days. And if it's a Tuesday versus a Thursday in November, or if it's this Friday after Thanksgiving, or all those different things. So it's the analytics are a huge part of it. But what we can't do is let analytics control us either. And we have to make sound business decisions. It's no different than what you're trying to accomplish. It's impossible. You're doing an impossible task, trying to reschedule all the different teams, and what if we do this, and what if we don't start until this. You can't. It's impossible. I have so much respect for all of you guys that it's like, wow, tough job. It's really challenging.
Well, Dan, and as somebody that we're going to jump into your career here and some words, balancing the economics, the television networks, and the contracts that you guys would have had to deal with, player safety, fan safety, employment safety, the list at the levels of professional sports, it just, and even you're right, even certainly at our level too, it is crazy times. And our segment has really been focused on the positivities and the memories of Stevens Point. We're going to get on to that. It's just, you're somebody who had a unique career and definitely some firsthand insight of what it must be like in NBA offices around the country right now, and Major League Baseball and NHL. And, NASCAR just announced they're going to race here shortly without fans, and just some crazy stuff. But, Dan, we're going to dive right in. So you were a highly successful two-sport athlete here at Stevens Point. Tell us about Pointer Athletics when you were here. What was it like to be a Pointer?
First of all, I had an absolutely great experience, and it was so much fun. And, I also was blessed because I kind of caught it on the way up. Football, when I got there, was really bad. But through Monty Charles and coming out with a unique, approach, we went from being, one of the worst teams to number 3 ranked team in the United States when I was a senior. So, when you're fortunate to live through that, and how do you do that? And quite honestly, it starts with the athletic director. He hired the right coaches, and then that coach or those coaches, recruited the really good players. And then we had a coach that just had a unique process and a unique approach that others couldn't do it. Like, whoa, what's this guy doing? Like, this is totally foreign to the rest of us. And it was, I was fortunate to live in that, because at my size, at 5'9", I never could have played in college sports if it wasn't for a unique approach where, a line blocking is a pass blocking, not drive blocking. So it's totally different. And I was so lucky to play for Monty. And, we had a great group of guys. We had a lot of fun. And in baseball, we I think we had great success, played a lot of great games, and it's so much fun, everything we did. And it really, what it comes down to, it still goes back to, certainly you want to win, but we had a really wonderful group of guys that wanted to win, but also kept it in the right perspective. And I think it's one of the beauties of Division III, and I know that it's changed from when I've been there, but I think it's really, we don't quite have that Division I pressure. And none of us, for the most part, are going to be going to the pros. And we're here because, it's kind of the basics, to go back to the old thing. Why do we like sports? Well, sports should be fun. We've kind of lost that a little bit. Whether you're a spectator or whether you're a player or a coach, and it's become a little bit, so intense because of the money. And I think it's been fantastic. When I played, we played for the fun, and that's pretty simple, but it's true. And we love being out there, love being with the guys, loved partying afterwards at Point. Not that that would ever happen. And so it was great.
Well, for those fans that maybe a little bit younger, you guys were doing something in football here well before its time. I mean, you turn on television today and the ball flies all over the place. And, you listen to the draft and the analytics behind drafts, and don't take a running back. They're a dime a dozen, get them in the second and third round. But in your time, Dan, it was, we're talking the black and blue division of the Green Bay Packers, handed off and sweeps and power eyes, and then you come to Point, and all of a sudden the ball's flying all over the place, right? And people still talk about the aerial circus and the days that you guys had there. And everybody credits Bill Walsh, and we're going to do all this new things. If you watch some mid-'70s film on Pointer football, you'd have seen some of that stuff going on already. That's for sure. So, Dan, you continue to be such a dear friend to the university, and your graduation speech was phenomenal, and we were so lucky to be able to bring you back as a distinguished alum. For you, what makes Point a special place?
Well, I had such a great experience, and there's so many different things and first of all, it starts with education. And I had very good teachers, much like you have today. And, I think you can't forget, like, why do we go to college? You just step back for a second. And we went, first of all, for an education. And I think the second thing is that we went probably to learn life skills and grow up. And I mean, the truth, we all grew up in college to some extent, some faster than others, but, we learn how to be a person. And then I think the last thing that kind of applies to today is we learn how to, as a part of those life skills, how do we handle adversity? And which is exactly what we're going through in this world today, all of us. The bad news is it's happening. The good news is it's happening to every person in the world. And so it's not like this is just in Stevens Point or Philadelphia or wherever it might be. We're all affected. So I think, it really learning how to handle adversity at college, whether that means maybe you didn't do well on a test and how you coming back to the next one, or maybe when you're playing football and you got whipped really bad by a team, and the next week you come back and you win, how great that feels. So how do we handle that adversity? Because we're all going through it, but that's okay. We're gonna get through this. But those skills and things that we all learned while we went to college, specifically at Point, were so valuable to me.
Well, Dan, you're right. I mean, it's certainly a common cause worldwide, which is so unusual. That everybody's fighting really for the same thing, and that's a cure and a vaccine. And you are, if there's one thing that I would describe you as, since I've had the privilege of getting to know you, and for our fans, being the athletic director at Stevens Point, the most special part of this job is being the gatekeeper of success. I didn't create it, and it's going to be here beyond me. But while I'm here, we get a chance, and getting to know Dan has been one of the special things. But if somebody said, give me one word about Dan, it would be relationships. Dan, there's one thing that you even coming back and getting people together, and you've flown back from Philly just to have lunch with a group of guys. And I know that, we were teasing off air before the show. You almost put your football jersey on for this and thought, nah, you'll put your polo on. But, Dan, talk a little bit about the relationships when you were here and some of your Pointer teammates, and, having went on to one of the biggest careers in sport that any Pointer ever has had. Do you stay in touch with your Pointer friends and your Pointer teammates and your coaches? And what do those relationships mean to you?
The relationships mean everything to me. And the guys that I played with, or lived with or my roommates or whatever, they mean the world to me. We get together every year for a golf outing back in Wisconsin. And if I'm in town like I was last year for the graduation speech, I went over to a Packers game the next day because I still bleed Packers. And then that night we had a party at one of the guys' houses of about 10 guys and that live in the Green Bay area. And boy, how special is that? We're talking over 40 years ago, and guys want to hang out together and get together. Like, that's cool. And have a couple beers and have some pizza and talk about old stories and make them sound even better than they were. And so, how lucky am I? But it's important. It's important to me. I keep in touch with all the guys. Certainly you have some guys that you're closer with than others. It's no different than yourself in your collegiate career. But I've been so lucky to have like really good friends and people that I can rely on, and also just like we can shoot the bull and be ourselves, and we don't have to worry about anything, and all those good things. It's so much fun, and the memories that I have, which is kind of what you're talking about, is when I think of Point and some of the baseball memories I have, like when we would take southern trips because Coach Clark just did an incredible job of putting it together. Some of the places we played in Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi. I mean, in the nights that we would drive, we would take off from Point and drive straight through. I remember one night in Mississippi, I was driving and I fell asleep, which is not good. So good news is I woke up, but it was not scary. I would never do. It's like life's lessons. That's like something I never do anymore. Anytime I get a little tired, I pull over. But it's all those things, and you get into football, and one of the things, life lessons you learn in I think in collegiate sports, like when we went and played at Abilene Christian for the national semifinals football, we flew from Point, and at the time there was approximately 75% of our players had never flown in their lives. Yeah. Now that's a big deal for 75% of your players to get on a plane to fly. You want to talk about life experience? I mean, life changing. Like, how cool was that? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how blessed were we to have the university do that for us at the time? So I probably shouldn't bring that up because you don't ever want to fly. You want to bus as an athletic director, but a little different situation. We didn't have any choice. So
yeah, well, you got to keep an eye. There's no doubt you got to keep an eye on the budget, but an eye on the experience for sure. Switching gears just a little bit, Dan, and maybe for our younger fans, which makes me feel, like I'm on the other end of getting old here, but the Jordan documentaries are out now, right? I don't think there could be anything more real than, and influential in my younger life. I was in high school and just into early college when it was Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, when it was Bulls, Pistons, and that was the resurrection of what used to be Lakers, Celtics, and your heyday in the NBA was well before. And what I appreciated about the NBA then was Isaiah Thomas was going to be a Piston, and that's it. And Larry Bird was going to be a Celtic, and that's it. And the thought of, other than the Dream Team, which was the most amazing thing ever, Mullen was, those guys weren't going to get together. We were going to win a championship in our city, or we weren't going to win one, and you were part of that. Can you talk a little bit, I mean, for those of us that were fans of it only, how awesome, and now to start seeing some of it kind of play out on television through the eyes of Michael Jordan, probably the biggest figure in pro sports. Talk to us about your career, Dan.
Well, I was, first of all, I'll end up with The Last Dance.
Yeah.
It's like literally like watching my life. And I mean that so sincerely, because I'm watching this, and all these people being interviewed are my friends. And then they would play games, Pistons against the Bulls, and that's us. And I knew exactly where I was sitting, and all these experiences before or after that something happened. So it's like I could tell you one experience. I'm with a team in Chicago. This is during the regular season, not in the playoffs. And I was traveling with a team, and I was on the bus. This is like one of those things that you can't ever imagine happening now. So I'm in the bus. I'm a nobody, and the fans start rushing the bus, and they start rocking the bus. And it's like eventually, security came, police came, and they stopped the bus. Like, can you imagine if that happened today? Like, it can't happen. So I mean, those experiences that you see, and the Last Dance, I think they did a really good job at it. And some a little bit of twist towards Michael's side there, but he obviously was, if not the greatest player ever. Certainly, I think he's the greatest player ever. But it's fun to watch it, and it's so much was a part of my life that we lived and died with it. I mean, it was like amazing times, and amazing times for the NBA as it grew. And Michael, I mean, he's just obviously an incredible player. But like when he was in that slam dunk championship, I'm rambling here, but slam dunk championship in Chicago, I remember I was sitting at the free throw line 12 rows up, and saw his taking off from the free throw line and jamming. It's just like you see those things, and you go like, wow, I was there. So it's pretty cool that you're, and blessed that somebody can live through that and see all those different parts. But one of the things that I think is really important is that we didn't just get there all of a sudden. It took time to grow, and that was kind of like my career. I started out literally working as an intern, making $100 a week versus 10% commission. And 10%, let's not forget the ticket prices were 8, 7, and 6. So multiply that out by, 10% is not a lot. But and I was fortunate to work my way up, and I had a great boss, Tom Wilson, and we had a great ownership, and his name is Bill Davidson. Unfortunately, since departed us, but we had a really, really good organization. If there's one of the things that I've learned in my career is that it all starts at the top, and if you have a great owner who does the right things, and you have a really good president and a really good general manager on the basketball side, you're going to usually succeed. And then you got to get some breaks somewhere. Injuries happen or don't happen. If somebody goes down at the wrong time, you're screwed, basically. I mean, you're in trouble. But, so I was fortunate to be in the right spot at the right time, and then we took advantage of it. But we had a great owner. So, that has so much effect on sports. And I don't care if that's 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or today. It still is very, very critical. Obviously, the numbers have changed. Now they're in billions versus, in those years it was 10, 20 million. So, like, our owner bought the Pistons for $8 million. I think they sold it for about 1.5 billion.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a good investment on what they did.
Not today, though.
This is staying on that topic before we move on. I think most of our fans know, but I went back to your distinguished alumni video, and just to refresh, and I'd watched it several times, and I went back to, and one of the things that I don't think as many people probably realize as they should, you won 7 world championships as an executive, in 3 different sports, but one of them, if I'm not mistaken, included another pointer. When you were, Terry Porter, part of the Pistons organization, so from little old Stevens Point, Wisconsin, the Pointers, right? We've got an assistant coach and we've got an executive. How cool was that for you? And talk a little bit about having 2-pointers part of something so incredible.
How cool is that? I mean, I
Yeah.
really, to think about it from a state university in Wisconsin, two people that can play a role. And Terry was, I think the world of the guy. He's a great, great player, done a nice job coaching. And, with us, he was one of our assistant coaches. So, we have a certain brotherhood, and that's, no one can ever take that away from us. Is so unique and cool. And also just that I think we both appreciate where we came from, and we don't ever lose sight of that. And that's still so important to both of us, that, what happened, with us at Stevens Point, we both had great experiences. We're treated so well, and we both were fortunate to be on really good teams too. And Terry, playing for Dick Bennett, and so who's, a dear friend, and also, done great things in his life. So we're so blessed to be part of that.
That's an incredible, just incredible to have two of our own. We talk about what the point dog means, right? What does this mean, and the power of the pointers, and Dan, you had said something, and this is for our younger people, our current athletes, maybe are just about to be graduates, our incoming classes. You had said something that you're never going to tell a young person what to do. And that's truthful. You've always been a pillar, a rock, a supporter, but, giving some freedom for people to do. But, you did it. You came from Stevens Point, you came from Wisconsin, and then you took a chance on Point and played some sports and was going to be a teacher, and decided, I'll try something else, and got an internship with the Pistons. How cool. And then, several years later, you're a 7-time world champ, a distinguished alum, all these things. If I had one topic that I get from younger people a lot, it's how do I get into sports? How do I get there? What do I do? What would you tell a younger person who says, hey, Dan, I'm interested in a career in sports. What should I do?
Well, most of us had no idea what we wanted to do coming right out of college. Now, I hope everybody does, but a lot of us don't. So, and when I got done student teaching, I realized that wasn't me. And so, okay, now what are you going to do? The good news is I was on the 4.5-year plan because I got hurt in football one year. So I had another, one more semester to figure it out. And then by the time I got done with that, I'd figured out, I think the sports thing, to credit Stevens Point, where I really got that kind of niche or nudged me a little bit was I had the chance to a co-op program working for the athletic director. His name was Paul Hartman at the time. And I did that. And I put out the first brochure, sports administration brochure, in the history of the athletic program. You probably didn't know that.
No.
And I still actually have it somewhere. But that kind of gave me an idea, like, boy, this was kind of fun. I enjoyed this. And so I think it's really what a co-op program should do, is introduce young people to different ideas or potential careers. And so I worked for the athletic director, found out I liked it, and thought, okay, what am I going to do? Well, at the time, believe it or not, there was only 3 sports administration programs in the United States. Unlike today, there's probably over 400, literally over 400. Seems like they're everywhere. So I went for an interview, and then got into Ohio University, and then took it from there. But I think where the Point really helped me absolutely as the athletic director, kind of was my guiding light, and didn't tell me what to do, but he introduced me to things. And so I did a brochure, and I, helped out on game days. I was Dick Bennett's first statistician. And so you do different things. And I think that's one of the keys, is allow yourself to experience different things. And you're going to hate some things, and you're going to love a couple other things. At least you find your direction, wherever you're going to go. And I think if there's one thing to pass on to young people, it's like, how can you get those experiences? And a lot of people, young people will say to me, well, I don't have that person to call, or I don't have that person. So I think what you have to do is take a step back. Well, you do have those people. You just don't know it. You know, who is that athletic director at your high school that you could call up and ask? Who's the athletic director at the college that you could stop in and ask? Who is that coach? Who is that friend of maybe one of your parents that could help you? There's a lot of people out there. And I think the other thing that kids today have a huge advantage that, you know, certainly we didn't, and that's the internet. You know, that they can go on and look up different universities. You know, do they have a sports administration program, or the different careers in sports? There's, you know, all these different placement offices now. And call some people up or send an email and ask for help. Most people are really good people and really trying to help people. So I would encourage young people to do that. But most importantly is, if you're interested, pursue it, give it a shot.
You know, we share a lot of things, Dan. I will tell you, and this is not about me, but I was an elementary education major myself, and I will remember the day sitting in Onalaska, Wisconsin, in a third grade class, and I was literally a semester from student teaching, and you know, back then we didn't have cell phones. I drove home, had to wait for my dad to get off work, had to dial the home number and say, Dad, I can't do this the rest of my life. I don't know what I'm going to do, but it isn't going to be teach third graders. I can tell you that. And, you know, I think it worked out best. And so, you know, and Dan, in closing, and to our fans who are just getting to know you again, and certainly a lot of us who know you, you know, your words of wisdom for Wisdom Wednesday are so important. And, you know, I can't tell you how much, at least from me personally, how much I appreciate you and your willingness, not just for today, but always to pick up the phone. And I know you're one call away, and I get great advice, and I have a true rock and pointer history. And, you know, with that, Dan, I just want to say a sincere thank you from me and our staff and our student athletes and our university for being such a great friend all these years and being a pointer. And, you know, with that said, though, Dan, the wisdom is always from the guest, and I leave the final words for you, Dan. What do you want to share as we finish up today's program for our Point Nation?
Well, I think overall we have to look at what is athletics about, and what is it supposed to teach us. And I think a lot of the things like hard work, discipline, physical fitness, you know, how we take care of our bodies, setting goals, being a good teammate, all of those things are things we learned from sports, but man, do they apply right now. They apply so much. And so I have one last thing that I would share with you, and that is something I try to do every day. I succeed most days, but don't succeed every day. And that is, pick up the phone these days and call somebody you haven't called in a long time. And just check in on them and say hello. Make sure you're okay. Maybe it's an older person, because obviously, you know, they're more at risk, or it's a person you haven't talked to, or a friend, and just check in with them to say hello, because we all need to know that people care. And if we all did that, just do one a day. And that's not, it sounds simple, but it's not, because you got to think, who am I going to call today? And do I have 20 minutes, you know, or at whatever amount of time? But I would just set a goal every day, one call a day, one whatever, so that somebody knows you're thinking about them. And I think if we all pull together, that really helps us all.
Great words, Dan. And before we close and say goodbye, I know that you were showing me, so I'm going to show the fans. You have an artifact from your days there near you. Show them what you brought with you today, Dan, and pick it up just a little bit. If you could, there it is. There it is. So what is that, Dan? That says St. Norbert. What is that?
It was a home run ball I hit 45 years ago. And this is the ball. We were playing at Point, We played a doubleheader against St. Norbert's, and I hit a home run, and I still have the ball. And I think I don't know what's more funny, that I have the ball or can still find the ball, or that I hit a home run. That's even more amazing.
Well, there's probably somebody in the De Pere area right now like, oh my gosh, that was my pitch that guy just shot out of here. So, well, fans, thank you. Dan, thank you again. Thank you for coming back and hearing Wisdom Wednesday. Fans will be back next Wednesday with the 7th edition of Wisdom Wednesday. Have a great week.
Thank you, Brad.